Hi, I'm Kim from tinyhousephotographers.com, and when we left you last time, we had just finished doing the framing for the dormer area in our loft, and we were ready to sheathe the outside of the house. So we've done that, and I just wanted to kind of show you what we did around the wheel wells here, because other than that, it's not that different from sheathing a big house, but this area was pretty complicated. So the way that we did this was we just started in the back of the house, which is the front of the trailer, with some 4x8 sheets of 1/2-inch plywood, and we stood them up vertically and just lined them up really nicely with the back edge of the house, and took a level to the side of it to make sure that they were nice and straight, nailed it in on the studs, and kept moving on. And each piece that we put on, we took a level to it and straightened it up really nice so we wouldn't have any kind of weird migration as we went down the edge of the house. So, also what we did behind these suckers before we nailed them in was we used some subfloor glue on the 2x4 studs and then smushed the plywood up there just to give it some extra stability. That's not something that you would do on a normal house, but since this one's going to drive down the highway, we talked to a few people about it, and kind of that was the consensus that that was a smart thing to do, was to go ahead and use that glue and just give it some extra help. So since our house has wheels, we have to compensate for those once we get down far enough. And so this was a little bit tricky because the wheel wells are curved, but they're not, it's not like part of a perfect circle. They're curved in kind of a weird way. And the outside of the wheel wells is actually a little bit different than the inside part close to the house. So what we tried to do at first was to set a piece of foam insulation right against here. Now it won't flush up because the tires come out further. So we kind of did this weird balancing act with a piece of leftover foam insulation on the tire, and we just tried to use a pencil to kind of like scribe this angle in here. And like I said, it didn't really work that well because this outside part is different than the inside part. So what we ended up doing was we took the piece of plywood that was going to go right here, and I don't know if you can see this in the video, but it ends right here. This is a seam. So we figured out where it was going to sit on the wheel well and went back to the other edge, and we marked out every 2 inches along the bottom of the sheet, and we did the same thing along the top. And then what we did was we went from the top of the framing on those grid lines, and we just measured, we took a tape measure and measured straight down to where that tape hit the wheel well. So we ended up like drawing this whole curve as a grid, and just basically played connect the dots with it and sort of drew the curve on there. And then Kevin came back and cut that out with a jigsaw. So then we had this nice curve that was exactly what it should be, where the framing met the wheel well, not the outside of it, which is different. So that worked really well for us. We couldn't really find any information on a good way to do that, so that was our method we kind of came up with. I think it worked all right. So we got all that put together. We did the same thing on the other side all the way down. This only went up to the first floor with this framing, and then we came back and did the sheathing on the upper floor, the loft dormer area, separately. And so now that's all finished, and we are gonna start framing out our roof rafters.